Welcome to the finished article. It's myself, the host Shazad, with my co-host Shazad as well. So today we've decided we're going to start doing some videos on some famous incidents that have defined the WWE. And the first one, it has to be one of the most famous incidents or infamous incidents, is the Montreal Screwjob. So first thing first, I'm going to ask a question to everyone. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think. Did Bret really screw Bret?
Guys,
could he have ended this a different way?
As Shaz has said, we're taking a ride back into history, and we're gonna go back and look at the defining moment that has really put WWE, AEW, and all of the other major wrestling firms on the map. And we're really going to try and understand and dig more detail, ask questions, and see if we can get to the bottom of really what happened. Guys, I'm gonna let Shaz kick it off, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, thanks, Shaz. I appreciate that. Yeah, so the Montreal Screwjob. Where do we begin with it? It obviously escalated to a point where Vince McMahon had to make a decision that was best for the WWF at the time. So I'll break it down. I'll go through what I know from reading about it over the past 20 odd years, basically. So it all started. Bret had a 20-year deal with the WWE. I don't know when that deal started. I don't know when it was due to run out. I'm assuming it started around 96, 97, because it was a new deal that he negotiated with Vince. It was a 20-year deal for, I think it was roughly $750,000 a year, which at that time was quite a high figure for a wrestler to get. And Vince said he couldn't honor that every year for him. And that's where this all started. Vince helped Bret negotiate a deal with WCW. So it wasn't all Bret. Bret said he obviously, if he couldn't have the contract that they negotiated, then he was going to leave for WCW. He decided he was going to leave. Vince helped him secure a good deal with WCW. Now, leading up to the end of Hitman's current deal, before the 20-year deal was due to start, he was WWF champion. And they were in talks of how, obviously, they were going to get the title off Hitman and onto somebody else before he left for WCW. Now, I think Hitman had already dropped the title to Shawn Michaels previously in the Iron Man match. I believe it was WrestleMania 12.
Correct, yes.
And then somehow, obviously, over a couple of years after that, Hitman had the title again. And the talk was that they wanted to drop it again to Shawn Michaels. Now, one thing you've got to see from this is Hitman was champion. The Survivor Series 1997 pay-per-view was being held in Montreal, Canada. Now, Hitman's from Canada, and he has a huge following in Canada, and he didn't want to lose the title in front of basically a home crowd. And I get where he's coming from. I get where he's coming from with it, but he's got to see it from the side of WWE, where he's their champion and he's leaving for another company. So he has to drop that title to someone within the company. I mean, it only makes sense. If Vince helped him negotiate a deal with WCW, the least he could do was drop that title to, well, obviously it was Shawn Michaels that they wanted him to drop it to.
So, Shaz, can I just jump in there for a second?
Of course you can. Of course you can.
So to add a bit of context for our viewers that are watching, basically, this is actually the real-life double-crossing and effectively a screw job of an employee that was at WWE and that Vince actually helped get a better deal. Now, as Shaz has alluded to, if Vince had given Hart a contract and he couldn't honor it, then that's basically, in professional terms, he literally screwed him over because he's given him something, signed on the dotted line.
I don't think they actually signed the deal, but I think it was due to, that would have been Hitman's new deal. Following the Survivor Series pay-per-view.
Just to add a bit of context, as everybody knows, now we all know how the match ended. But the fact is, if you go and use your opponent's move on your opponent and then he doesn't submit, you are asking for one hell of an ass kicking.
Yeah,
and
no,
that
of course. Of course you are. Of course you are, bro. Now, the other thing is, I've watched a lot of other people's take on the Montreal Screwjob, and I've read a lot of articles and stuff like that about it, and interviews that people have had. Now, in one piece of, I think it was a video actually, not piece of, not an article. The rumor was that Vince McMahon could have actually honored that deal. He could have given Hitman £750,000 a week, I think, a year. Sorry, that he was asking for. He just didn't want to, because at the time I think Hitman was about 42 years old. I think that's how old he was. I can't remember how old he was. He was in his 40s. But you can't be giving a 40-year-old a 20-year deal that would take him into his 60s and give him that much money. And Vince realized it was a stupid idea. So he pulled out.
I think there's other problem, Shaz, and you got to understand this, is that, and guys will probably know. So it's around mid-97, and the WWF, as it was known back in the day, they were facing financial difficulty and competition from WCW. Now, when WCW wasn't there, everything was hunky-dory and rosy because they were the main competition there. But now, obviously, with his idea of going public, he then had to work out a way of like how he could manage financial commitments. Now, if you ask me, the way that storyline went down was just a blatant disregard for someone who's been at the company since the 1980s and was completely.
He actually started with WWE in 1984, bro.
Yeah.
So he was there for what, 10, 14 years? He'd been working for Vince. Now, they'd had talks with Hitman about dropping the title at Survivor Series to Shawn Michaels. Now, at first, I believe Hitman was okay with it. And it was later that he changed his mind after hearing what Shawn Michaels had said, that Shawn Michaels wouldn't do the same for Hitman. He wouldn't drop the title to him. And he took offense to it. He took offense to the fact that Shawn Michaels was a younger wrestler and he wouldn't obviously drop a title to him if he was asked to. And I get that. You know, it can be offensive when a younger talent comes in and says, "No, I'm not going to drop the title to you." Even though that wasn't going to happen because Shawn wasn't the champion, it was still offensive to Hitman. He still had them old school values. So yeah, he took offense to it and said, "No, I'm not going to drop the title to him at Survivor Series. What I'll do is I'll keep the title at Survivor Series, however way you want me to keep it. Whether I beat Shawn or I win the match by DQ or it's a double DQ, whatever you want to do it. And I'll forfeit the title the next night on Raw." And it was a conversation, I believe, that Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Vince McMahon had that sparked the idea of a screw job.
Yeah.
I believe they were having a conversation. I mean, Shawn and Triple H were constantly in contact with Vince for creative ideas, basically. Every week they'd be on a call with him. Vince had rang Shawn and Triple H as well, just to talk about the match at Survivor Series. And Vince was just explaining to them, you know, what the situation was. And at that point, Triple H wasn't that big in WWE. He was the second member basically of DX. I don't think he'd won many titles at that stage.
I don't think
and he wasn't with Stephanie. You know, it was early on in his career.
Correct.
And he chimed into the conversation between Shawn and Vince, saying, "Look, it's probably not my place to say it, but who does Hitman think he is? You know, someone dropped the title to him, so why won't he drop the title to someone else? You know, who does he think he is?" And it was at that point Shawn turned around and said to Vince, "Look, you know, you, as in the company WWF, have put up with a lot of crap from me over the years. You know, this is where my loyalty lies. My loyalty will always lie with WWF. So I will do whatever you want me to do."
I want to jump
and at that point, sorry, I'll let you jump in. Go on, bro.
Go. So I wanted to add a different perspective from what I've heard and read. Now, granted, there was a lot that all of the parties could have done. Vince could have dealt with it differently. Shawn could have dealt with it differently. Bret Hart could have dealt with things better. Now, actually, one of the suggestions that came in reading through history was that The Undertaker had actually got a good relationship with Vince McMahon. And he said, look, guys, there's a really simple solution to this. Put me in the match and I'll get what you need done. Because guess what? There was history between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. So immediately,
of course it was.
The storyline works because Bret Hart would have gone with it. Now, why Vince didn't go with that, I believe that there were some murmurs and rumors about disagreements of how they wanted it to happen. But I think that's just one angle that I've always
wondered. The thing is, Vince wanted Shawn to be the champion going forward. That's where the issue lied. I don't think he wanted to put the title on anybody else at that point. He wanted to put it on Shawn Michaels. And yeah, Shawn Michaels did say he'd do whatever Vince wanted him to do. But at that point, Vince said, look, I've got till Saturday, which was, the day before the pay-per-view, to talk to Bret about, what we're actually going to do. So Vince obviously tried to talk Bret into dropping the title however, he wanted to. But it had to be at the pay-per-view. That was Vince's only take on it. It had to be at the pay-per-view. You drop the title to Shawn, you lose the match. However, you decide you want to. He's got creative control. You decide how you want to lose it. Bret was having none of it. Bret was very adamant, no, I'm not losing the title. We have to do it a different way. He was giving him options that I'll drop the title or I'll forfeit the title on Monday Night Raw and leave, I'll leave. So you have a vacated title, and you can either put it on Shawn yourself, or you can have a tournament. You can do what you want. But Vince was like, no, I don't want to do that. Basically, they're at a disagreement. It's Vince's business. He wants to do it his way. Bret says, no, I'm the champ. I want to do it my way. I have creative control, which is basically part of the problem, that he had creative control. If Bret didn't have that creative control, the Montreal Screwjob would never have happened. Vince would have told him, you're dropping the title to Shawn, and he would have had to do it.
Guys, and I think the whole premise behind why we're going back into the flashbacks is to dig deep into some of the storylines that have come out in recent years. So, yes, did Bret screw Bret? That's debatable. As we saw from WrestleMania 26, actually, it turns out that it was actually a very cunning storyline. Now, I'll be honest with you, the creative storyline in the years that have passed since the Attitude Era have been really bad. And I can only put that down to the fact that WWE or WWF at the time decided to go PG. Now, for me, whilst I'm also catering for all audiences, I think there has to be a certain line of reality TV that.
No, of course there does. But yeah, I think it was. So I'll just finish off what I know of the Montreal Screwjob following the Saturday. It came to the pay-per-view. They still hadn't come to any type of agreement with Hitman, so Vince put his plan into play. There was 4 people that knew about the Screwjob. There was Vince McMahon, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and I believe it was Jay Briscoe. Now, there is rumors that JR and Pat Patterson knew about it, but at the time, I think JR was head of talent relations and Pat Patterson was the head booker. So Vince didn't want them to know, because there would have been a lot of heat on them backstage from everybody else, and the other wrestlers wouldn't be able to trust them, which obviously would have put WWE into chaos. That wrestlers would have probably started to leave because these 2 people knew about it. So I believe before the match, Bret Hart actually spoke to Earl Hebner, the referee that was involved in it. Now, at the time, Earl Hebner didn't know about the Screwjob. So when Bret asked him, he was being honest that he had no idea of any Screwjob. He told Bret, I have not been told of anything, and that put Bret's mind at ease just before the match. Now, in the gorilla position in the back, normally, from what I've read, when people are going to do a run-in, they don't wait in the gorilla position, which is the area just before the curtain, basically.
Yeah, correct.
They don't wait there at the start of the match to do a run-in. they come there towards the end of the match when they know they're about to do a run-in, and then they do what they need to do. But at this stage, at the start of the match, the Hart Foundation was there. So Owen Hart, British Bulldog, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, they were all there. Which it seemed a bit weird that they were there at that stage. But I think they were there to support Bret in case something did go down. But the end of the match was always due to be a no DQ. So Triple H was going to come out with the rest of, I think it was it China and Rick Rude at this? No, I think Rick Rude had already left. The DX was basically meant to come out, interfere in the match. The Hart Foundation would come out. There would be a big brawl. The match would end in a DQ. Hitman would remain champion, and blah blah blah. But as we all know, that didn't happen. As Earl Hebner was going out from the gorilla position, to get ready to referee the main event, I think it was Jay Briscoe, I believe it was, that went over to him and told him, when Shawn Michaels puts Hitman into the sharpshooter, Vince is going to call you for you to ring the bell, and you need to ring the bell. And he was told, look, you've got a wire on you, so if you try and warn Bret, you're going to get sacked. That's basically how it went down with Earl Hebner. He got told, you have to do this, otherwise you're getting sacked. You've got a wire on you so we can hear you. You try any bullcrap like telling Hitman, you're sacked. We'll find another way to do it. So Vince went down to ringside, which no one thought was unusual for this, for the main event, because he'd already had a storyline built up with Hitman and stuff like that. So as we know, the match went on. Hitman got put into his own finishing move by Shawn Michaels. Vince McMahon rang the bell, got the bell rung, and that was history made. That he'd been screwed. Now backstage, Vince McMahon actually locked himself in his own office. This is what I've read. Vince McMahon locked himself in his office. Shawn Michaels was in the locker room, and Hitman went into the locker room, and the first thing he did was ask Shawn, he goes, Shawn, were you involved in it? And Shawn Michaels actually said no. He told him that I didn't know about it, which obviously he was lying. Bret Hart felt like Shawn was lying and wanted to beat him up. The whole Hart Foundation was in that locker room, and I believe Bret's son Blade was there as well. There was a lot of heat backstage. All the wrestlers, all the staff, no one knew what had just happened, and everyone was just running around trying to figure out what was going on. I believe it was the Undertaker that went to Vince's office.
Yeah.
At this point, the Undertaker was a leader in the backstage area. People looked up to him, and I think he always did what he needed to do to make sure things were going smoothly. At this point, he thought, right, what's gone on here? We need an explanation. And so does Hitman. Hitman deserved an explanation. He knocked on Vince's door, said, look, you need to give Hitman an explanation of what just happened. So Hitman was in the locker room. I believe Vince went to speak to him. They had a heated argument about, everything. Vince said, look, I helped you negotiate a deal. You could have just dropped the title and none of this would have happened. And they came to a physical altercation. Now, there's rumors of how this went down, but no one really knows exactly how it went down. There's no pictures. There's nothing about it. I believe they got into a tie-up, as they call it in wrestling. Bret Hart's take is that he hit Vince with an uppercut, and Vince dropped to the floor unconscious. Other takes were that Vince let Hitman hit him. He let him have a free shot, and it knocked him out. There is video footage of what they're showing the corridors after, and you see Vince McMahon walking around dazed. Now, that's how much I know about it. There's other bits and bats, but I don't think they're that important that we need to go through them, really. So, Shaz, firstly, I'm going to ask you, what do you think could have happened differently to stop the screw job, basically?
No, I think you've covered it quite well. I mean, from my perspective, and we've talked about this over the last couple of videos on wrestling, I just think that it was really poorly managed. I think for me, yes, you could say you could have dropped it different way, but I think this is on Vince. Fact
Oh
of the
yeah,
matter
it is.
fact of the matter is that if you can't honor a guy's contract, you
Yeah,
can't then tell him how he's going to drop the title, considering you've given the guy creative power, if you like.
exactly.
But for
That's
me,
where it's all come from. That Vince
yeah,
gave Hitman creative control.
exactly. So for me, as alluded to a short while ago before you were filling us in on the gaps, for me, I would have rather him lost, and I can understand he didn't want the title to go on anyone except for Shawn Michaels. But you've got to think about the bigger picture here. If we'd have lost it to, the Undertaker, then Shawn Michaels and Undertaker could have had that fight. And I'll be honest with you, if you look at the fact that Bret came back for WrestleMania 26 that we all watched,
Hmm.
I think this is just poor management, because then you
Of course
leave
it
the
is.
storyline for 12 years. The guy comes back old as anything, and now you've just literally messed everyone up. So, do you see what I mean? So
Yeah, of course. I get where you're coming from.
this is a
Now,
systematic issue of the fact that
I don't
you
think. I mean, I don't think if it wasn't Shawn Michaels, if it was The Undertaker or someone else, I think Bret would have still been adamant that he wanted to keep the title. I think either way, there would have been a screw job because Bret was being very stubborn. Bret was just being Bret. He was very old school. He's like, I'm the veteran. Sean's younger. He should show me that respect. And job to me basically, and then I'll relinquish the title. But
done it.
fair enough from Bret's side. Yeah, he is a veteran. But he'd already dropped the title to Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12 in the Iron Man match.
Yeah, correct.
So what was stopping him doing it this time? There was nothing stopping him doing it this time. He was just being stubborn. He was just being awkward on his way out to a company that made him into a star. WWE made Bret the Hitman Hart who he was at that point. Without WWE, he
I don't
wouldn't be as that. He wouldn't have been that big, bro.
I don't disagree with that, Shaz, but you got to understand one thing. Everything you've said up to now, absolutely 100% agree with you. The fact that Vince helped him, perfect, that makes sense. But you've got to understand that Hart's resentment would be down to the fact that I'm gonna give you a piece of paper. I'm gonna verbally agree with it. However, whether it was signed or not, we'll never know unless we find the details. Then you to basically tell the guy you can't honor the contract. Now, if we were to do that to each other, and you haven't been man about it and said to my face, then why do you think the guy? What do you expect the guy to do? He's basically
No,
going
I
to say,
get that. I get where you're coming from with the contract. I do, and that is a factor. But he should have seen it from fair enough from his side. That's what the issue was, that Vince offered him a contract, and then he went back on it saying I can't honor it. Which fair enough, anyone would be upset about. Someone offers you a contract, and you agree it verbally or whatever, and then the other side pulls out. I get it. You'd be upset about it. Anyone would be. But Bret should have seen it from the business side, from the WWE side. He was very in the know about how businesses work.
yeah,
His dad was Stu Hart. He had the Hart Dungeon. He knew how WWE worked. He knew that as champion, he needs to do what's right for the business. And it goes to show Hitman wasn't the right person to be the champion because he wasn't willing to do what was right for the business. Now, this all could have been avoided, if you ask me. It could have all been avoided if Vince had taken the title off Hitman a couple of months earlier, knowing that it was at the end of his contract, we're in negotiations, there's a chance that he might not stay with us. I'll take the title off him now. If he stays with us, we can always give him the title back.
all right, Shaz.
Do you know what I mean?
Let me bring you another point, and I'm glad you touched upon it, because whilst this might have not been a contract situation, if you like, but by the way, this is a preview of what we're going to discuss next. So you talk about contract, you talk about business. We then go all the way up to WrestleMania 30, and we all know what happened at WrestleMania 30, and we know what we're talking about. How do you then explain? And guys, this is a teaser because we're not discussing it here, but we'll bring you in on it. How the hell do you explain Undertaker dropping his streak to Lesnar? Because from what I've seen after that, that made absolutely no sense. But guys, that's something for another episode. But just throw it out there.
So I was just double checking to make sure I got this right. So August '97 SummerSlam.
Yeah.
That's where Hitman won the title from The Undertaker. Okay. So why would you put the title on the Hitman a couple of months before his contract's due to expire? I don't really get why Vince would have done that.
That's what I mean. So you got the bigger context to worry about. So everything.
So there was also sorry, the Hitman actually beat someone called the Patriot at the next pay-per-view called Ground Zero.
Yeah.
And then you go on to, and then that was just a couple of months before Survivor Series, which was in November. So, Vince could have avoided it all by not giving the title to Hitman at that stage or just leaving it with The Undertaker until, you decide, until Hitman decides whether he's staying or not. And obviously, we found out he's going to leave. You wouldn't have had the Montreal Screwjob.
That's what
so, yeah, it is Vince's fault as well. Exactly. So, in all, if you ask me, Bret screwed Bret.
Yes. Okay, let me tie it up. Bret screwed Bret, but actually Vince screwed himself because he could have avoided the whole situation.
Yeah, of course he could.
Let's be honest. This highlights the fact that you've got storylines. You okay? I'm gonna give you a contract, or I'm gonna give you the title, and then without hindsight, thinking, okay, forward planning is a big thing. These days, and
it just goes to show. Sorry, go on. I'll let you finish, bro.
And as we've seen now from this WrestleMania that is going to be aired next week, you've got Daniel Bryan back in the triple threat. Now, as Shaz has alluded to, he's pissed off. But guess what? If he was watching the Screwjob back in '97, and I think most of us were pretty young at the time, you'd be in the same position. So the times haven't changed. It's just the same story lines recycled.
Exactly. It's just regurgitated crap from WWE, and then that's the problem. And you're right. Yeah, if WWE had forward planned that, the title run for The Undertaker, none of this would have happened. And it just goes to show, even from what we're 97 back then, we're in 2021, they're still not forward planning.
No.
So they've not really learned anything from the Montreal Screwjob. It's just, I don't know. Part of me does feel sorry for the Hitman. I'm not gonna lie. I do feel sorry for the Hitman. Okay. He was at WWE for 14 years, and on his way out, he was screwed over by the company that he gave 14 years of his life to, and his body and sweat and tears. Do you know what? I do feel sorry for the guy, but I also think that part of it was his own fault, that he didn't just drop the title like he was told to do.
I don't deny that. So Shaz, and the guys that are watching, whoever's watching, we're not denying that it was he had a part to play and he could have done things different. What I'm trying to say is, if you forward plan, you would know that if you're going to change the storyline, or if you're going to change the angle, or if you can't offer a guy a deal, then don't go with that storyline, because then all you end up doing is you end up getting up to WrestleMania 26, where me and Shaz ended up watching it together, and you're thinking to yourself, we're a lot older now, and this storyline makes no sense, because Bret, whilst he's a legend, he was way past it at this point.
Oh yeah.
And it was really bad story making. You watched them.
Are you talking about Vince McMahon versus Hitman?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
that was awful, man. That was 5 years awful.
Hey, that's what I mean.
I mean,
that's what
I mean. I've seen a lot about. Obviously, there's a lot of talk of Hitman and Shawn Michaels, who have now obviously they put the past in the past, and they're not holding grudges against each other. But I read in an interview from Shawn Michaels that he said he'd do the same again if he had to. He'd do it again if he had to, because in his eyes, he did what was right for the business that he was loyal to, and that gave him a chance from when he was young. Now, another video that we are going to do later on is a story, the storied career of Shawn Michaels. We're going to do that. We're going to do the storied career of The Undertaker as well. We're going to do the storied career of a couple of other wrestlers. and obviously we're going to do other events that have shaped the WWE.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's much more we can say on the Montreal Screwjob. Besides, my take on it, Shaz, is Bret screwed Bret. Do you think that's correct, or do you think Vince screwed Bret, or do you think Vince screwed Vince?
I'm going to say
Or do
that
you think Shawn screwed Bret?
let me put it to you another way. I'll say WWF screwed WWF. That's effectively what happened.
Fair enough. No, that's your take on it, bro. That's your take on it.
Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. As Shaz has alluded to, we're going to be covering a lot more from flashbacks. So please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch up with you very soon. Until then, take care.
Thanks everyone for listening. I know I went on a bit of a few rants there, so thanks for bearing with me, Shaz. But yeah, leave the likes on the videos that you do like. Hit the subscribe button on the channel, please, and leave some comments and let us know what your thoughts are on this. And also, follow us on Facebook. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you again on the next video.